Xpert BI, releasing the power of your data. Let's take a look at a source database which we want to import into our data warehouse. As you can see, the names of the tables in this source are not very user-friendly, and although the column names are somewhat descriptive, the foreign key relationships are not intuitive. And this is just a small selection of the tables available in this data source. Normally, a data source has several hundred tables, and it takes a specialist to fully understand the data model.
Now let's take a look at the Xpert BI application and how fast you can get started with a new data source. Xpert BI has a solution explorer which is structured into three functional areas: source definition, configuration, and operation. You will also find these as separate ribbons with related actions on each ribbon. Source definition is where you define the tables, columns, and relationships of your data source. It is also where you can give new user-friendly names to your tables and columns and add functions to your columns. Source definition is all about metadata control. Configuration is where you set the connection string to the data source. Configuration is also where you can add filters to your tables. Operation is where you run the actual data load. You can also do other data analysis in operations such as relationship analysis and query the source data. I will now show you how you would go about importing a database into your data warehouse. You start in source definition. Create a new data source, and I'll name this data source sales demo. Next, you need to create a data source version. This is so that you have the possibility of having more than one version of your data source available. I'll name a version 1. I now need to specify the source metadata. I'll go to the import source metadata and choose my data source and shift select to drag all its tables over to the other side. I click Save to save the metadata. The next step is to give my tables and column user-friendly descriptive names. I simply just click on my version and a grid showing all the tables and columns appears. There are many ways to edit the destination names. You can type directly into the grid or export to Excel and edit the names in Excel. You can also use source table names or use suggested names. For this demo, I will import an Excel file that has pre-filled suggested names and use suggested names. I can still edit the names if I want to. I have now defined the metadata for the data source and for my data destination, and now all I need is a connection string, and I'm ready to load my data. I open the configuration node and select a new instance. Here, it is possible to have several instances with different connection strings and filters for the same data source definition. I call my instance America, as this is the database for my American sales. To connect to the database, I choose Edit Connection and select my database and save. To run the import, I go to Operation, I find my data source and click Data Source Processing. This will load the executables and show me what will be imported. Next, I hit Process and can follow the steps in progress. 4 green lights show me that this was a successful import. To schedule the import, I simply go to Configuration and click Copy.exe parameters, and I can run this from whichever agent I want. For example, the command prompt. Simply paste and run. Now let's take a look at my data warehouse to view the idealized data model. All the tables have been loaded with new table and column names. But the most significant feature of Xpert BI is the surrogate keys and the surrogate foreign keys that are created. Each table in my data warehouse has one key, which is a numeric integer, and all foreign key references are done by just one foreign key column. Also, the primary and foreign key names are intuitive and are always the table name plus an underscore ID. This makes it very easy to read the data model just by looking at the column names. This simplifies the data model to a point where a user of, for example, a self-service BI tool can actually get access to the data at this level and understand the data model. There's a lot more functionality to Xpert BI, and more advanced properties will be shown in the full demo video.
For more information, go to bi-builders.com.